The wealthy mothers at the elite institution ridiculed her, sneering at her simple linen blouse and plain canvas bag instead of luxury brands and precious jewels. One woman suggested she might be a housekeeping staff member who'd wandered into the wrong area. When her child became the victim of a cafeteria food attack and she requested access to surveillance recordings, a parent confronted her directly. The parent demanded to know what authority she thought she possessed. Later that day, her spouse, a billionaire, arrived by helicopter, landing on the athletic grounds. Perched atop the hills of Greenwich, Connecticut, Astor Heights Academy resembled a symbol of royalty. The institution's stone structures, covered in climbing vines, seemed to whisper tales of inherited fortune and impenetrable social standing. The grounds were immaculately maintained, featuring emerald grass expanses, a library constructed of glass, and an arts facility that welcomed children of senators and technology magnates. Annual fees reached $65,000, while the roster of families resembled a wealthy elite directory. Financial titans, media executives, and dynasties whose names adorned medical centers and cultural institutions filled the halls. Privilege saturated the atmosphere. Luxury vehicles driven by chauffeurs crowded the arrival area, while students carried monogrammed bags and quietly bragged about vacation properties in exclusive coastal areas. Astor Heights transcended its role as an educational institution. The place functioned as a social stronghold where social standing served as admission and rejection was practiced with precision. Each morning, Elise Harper accompanied her son Theo through the school's wrought iron entrance, her linen blouse rippling in the wind, her simple footwear making no sound against the stone pathway. She was 38 years old and possessed an understated elegance, characterized by warm eyes the color of chocolate, auburn hair in a loose plait, and a subtle smile that conveyed both compassion and strength. Her worn canvas bag, showing signs of use along its seams, held Theo's midday meal, a borrowed book, and a small notepad for recording thoughts about local initiatives. Elise and her spouse Graham resided in an unpretentious colonial-style home located 1 mile from the institution. Their property lacked secured entrances or protective personnel, featuring only a garden she cultivated personally and a veranda where Theo assembled scale rocket models. They possessed the financial means to purchase significant portions of Greenwich, yet they embraced restraint, an existence free from lavish displays of their fortune. For Elise, financial resources represented instruments rather than symbols of superiority. Theo, aged 9, was a reserved child who inherited his mother's chocolate eyes and demonstrated talent in celestial science. He dressed in simple tan trousers and a blue pullover, his school bag lacking branded emblems, his lunch consisting of a home-prepared turkey sandwich and fresh fruit. At Astor Heights, where children flaunted $500 athletic shoes and smartphones loaded with luxury travel applications, Theo remained unnoticed, or more accurately, became a victim. The adult guardians observed this pattern as well. During dismissal time, Elise remained separate, her bag draped across her shoulder, while mothers draped in expensive coats and fathers wearing custom-tailored garments formed exclusive circles, their comments sharp with condemnation. One whispered inquiry questioned whether she was hired help, her diamond earrings catching light. Another responded with a smirk, identifying her as the mother and suggesting she represented a financial aid recipient. Their mockery cut through the cold morning. Air like a weapon, yet Elise maintained her composure. 7 days prior to the dining hall event, Elise discovered a printed notice inserted into her postal box, its prominent text declaring, "Initiative to maintain Astor Heights' excellence." The document bore signatures from Meredith Lang, Preston Tate, and 30 additional parents advocating for more rigorous entrance requirements to maintain the institution's privileged heritage. Though the notice avoided naming Elise or Theo directly, its purpose was transparent, referencing households failing to match our principles and disruptive presences. During the subsequent parent organization gathering, Meredith rose to speak, her voice saturated with artificial worry. She suggested certain parents failed to enhance the community's reputation and might find greater satisfaction elsewhere. The assembly expressed agreement, with parents murmuring that she referenced the Harper family. Elise, positioned in the rear area with her bag resting on her legs, experienced their stares penetrating like blades. A father named Victor Crane contributed that their child created diversions, continuously complaining about celestial objects. The ridicule was piercing and harsh as mobile devices captured Elise's isolated presence for online mockery. She departed the gathering prematurely, the notice crushed in her grip, her composed exterior concealing a burning desire for fairness. The initiative accumulated 200 endorsements through digital channels, each representing a public insult. She would acknowledge Theo with her steady smile before returning home in solitude. The mockery intensified. During the autumn fundraising event, a formal evening celebration held in the school's central hall, Elise appeared wearing a modest ivory gown without jewelry, having exchanged her bag for a small handbag she'd possessed since her university years. The remaining mothers, adorned in designer couture, and dripping with luxury jewelry, surrounded her predatorily. Meredith Lang, married to a venture capital executive, remarked with curled crimson lips about how charming Elise appeared, inquiring whether she'd sewn the garment personally. The group responded with laughter, their champagne glasses producing clinking sounds. A father named Preston Tate moved closer, his expensive timepiece reflecting light, loudly suggesting they attended for complimentary appetizers, drawing chuckles from nearby contributors. Elise consumed her water, her gaze remaining tranquil, responding quietly that she attended to support Theo's education. Meredith's expression became strained as she replied condescendingly that Elise's presence was indeed generous. The term struck like a physical blow, yet Elise merely nodded, her poise unshaken. Throughout the autumn fundraiser's silent bidding, Elise positioned herself near an exhibition featuring Theo's celestial science assignment, a manually illustrated star diagram attached to a simple display panel. The remaining mothers, led by Meredith Lang, assembled in proximity, their diamond jewelry sparkling beneath the overhead lights. Meredith spoke loudly while gesturing toward the diagram, questioning whether her child utilized inexpensive coloring tools. The collective laughed, their voices traveling throughout the hall, attracting attention from donors. A mother named Sylvia Crane added speculation that they couldn't purchase a telescope, forcing the child to observe the sky without equipment. Mobile devices emerged, capturing images of the diagram with captions referencing charitable artwork circulating online. Elise overheard, her fingers gripping her handbag more firmly, yet she knelt to straighten Theo's display, maintaining her composed expression. Preston Tate tossed a $1 note onto the display, wearing a smirk, offering it for the next creative endeavor. The collective's ridicule became tangible, enveloping Elise. Nevertheless, she stood upright, her chocolate eyes unwavering, her dignity serving as protection against their cruelty. The recording of this event accumulated 5,000 views before the night concluded, each remark representing a new injury. Theo endured worse treatment. Within the dining facility where students occupied refined oak surfaces beneath overhead windows, a collection of boys headed by Carter Lang, Meredith's son, a thin child with malicious tendencies, victimized him daily. Carter would sneer and address him as "linen boy," throwing fruit at Theo's meal tray, questioning whether his mother packed soil for his midday meal again. The surrounding table would erupt with laughter, children capturing images on their devices, their mockery reverberating against the marble surfaces. Theo maintained a lowered gaze while consuming his sandwich, yet the taunts penetrated deeply. In Theo's natural sciences course, a collaborative assignment concerning stellar formations required students to form partnerships. Carter Lang, favored by the instructor, positioned himself prominently, selecting teams with royal authority. He declared that Theo would not be chosen, wearing a smirk while suggesting his mother probably believed stars were merely decorative sparkles. The class responded with laughter, their attention shifting to Theo, who remained isolated at his work surface with his notebook displaying a comprehensive illustration of Orion. Miss Kendall, the instructor, produced a soft chuckle, suggesting they proceed with Carter's plan without intervening to protect Theo. Individually, students received selections, their designer school bags positioned beside chairs while Theo remained without a partner. A female student named Leia Tate whispered audibly that nobody desired collaboration with Linen Boy, saying he would diminish their performance. The snickering proliferated as devices discreetly recorded Theo's isolation. The recording subsequently shared to a restricted communication channel titled Aster Rejects. Theo's hands trembled as he closed his notebook, his chocolate eyes focused downward, yet he remained silent. The rejection transcended social boundaries. It represented deliberate elimination, authorized through silence from those responsible for his protection. Elise learned about this through a compassionate maintenance worker, experiencing heartbreak, yet strengthening her determination. During one incident, Carter escalated matters. As Theo approached the waste receptacle, Carter and his associates cornered him, overturning a serving dish of mashed potatoes and sauce onto his head. The dining facility became motionless before erupting in ridicule. Devices emerged with recordings in progress. Carter announced loudly that the charity recipient received a transformation, exchanging celebratory gestures with his companions. Theo remained stationary with sauce streaming down his sweater, his chocolate eyes blazing, yet remaining dry. An instructor named Ms. Kendall witnessed everything yet turned away, pretending to examine her document holder. During a guardian-educator consultation, Elise positioned herself across from Ms. Kendall, Theo's natural sciences instructor, anticipating discussion regarding his advancement. The space displayed student assignments, though Theo's star diagram was conspicuously missing. Ms. Kendall inclined forward with a thin smile, stating that Theo possessed uniqueness, yet struggled to integrate with their top performers. Elise's forehead creased, yet she maintained composure while requesting clarification. Ms. Kendall released a breath while reviewing her documentation, explaining his concentration on celestial science appeared charming, yet diverted from collective interactions, suggesting perhaps a less challenging institution would accommodate him better. The statement represented coded criticism, reflecting the parents' contempt. Elise noticed a collective communication platform displayed on Ms. Kendall's computer, revealing a message from Meredith Lang instructing to maintain control over the Harper child, claiming he embarrassed them. The instructor made no attempt at concealment, her smirk reflecting the parents' cruelty. Elise's hands clenched beneath the surface, her chocolate eyes intensifying, yet she expressed gratitude to Ms. Kendall before departing, her bag weighted with betrayal. Subsequently, she discovered Ms. Kendall had distributed Theo's academic performance records within that communication platform, ridiculing his celestial fascination. The transgression was intimate, an educator's responsibility transformed into a weapon. Elise became aware when Theo returned home with his sweater stained and his voice subdued. Following the dining hall event, a restricted social media profile titled Aster Elite Only shared a compilation of Theo's humiliation, sauce streaming down his sweater, Carter's sneer, the collective's ridicule accompanied by mocking audio. The description stated that Linen Boy discovered his proper position with hashtags demanding Aster's preservation in pure form. The profile belonged to Lila Tate, Preston's daughter, accumulating 200 subscribers including parents, students, and even Miss Kendall. Remarks accumulated suggesting the charity recipient received appropriate treatment, his mother represented a mockery, and observations about her bag. The recording proliferated to another platform, accumulating 50,000 views within hours, each distribution representing fresh injury to Theo, who observed it on a classmate's device. Elise discovered it when a neighbor transmitted the connection experiencing profound disappointment as she witnessed her son's suffering becoming widespread. During dismissal, parents wore smirks while whispering inquiries about viewing the recording, calling it characteristic. Meredith Lang shared a mysterious message suggesting certain individuals didn't belong and nature performed sorting functions. Elise remained positioned near the entrance, her linen blouse catching wind, her gaze focused on Theo's collapsed posture as he approached her. The digital persecution continued relentlessly, representing a public destruction of their respectability. Yet Elise's tranquility concealed an internal tempest developing. Theo claimed it was unintentional, yet his shaking hands revealed the reality. She knelt while brushing his hair, experiencing internal anguish. She spoke gently, requesting he explain the events. Theo hesitated before revealing everything: Carter's actions, the potatoes, the ridicule, the instructor who remained passive. Elise's jaw became rigid, yet her voice maintained gentleness, assuring him he bore no fault while embracing him closely, promising to resolve matters. The following morning, she proceeded to the administrative leader's workspace, her bag positioned across her shoulder, requesting access to the dining facility surveillance recordings. The principal, Dr. Evelyn Warwick, a refined woman with an inclination towards satisfying financial contributors, reclined in her leather seating. She stated dismissively that such events occurred commonly, her smile condescending, suggesting boys exhibited typical behavior. Elise's gaze remained steady as she reiterated her request to view the recordings, her tone firm yet composed. Dr. Warwick's smile diminished, yet before responding, Meredith Lang entered abruptly, her footwear producing clicking sounds, her expression displaying indignation. He demanded to know what authority Elise possessed to issue directives, suggesting that if she couldn't afford proper child-rearing, perhaps he didn't belong at their institution. The space became silent. Additional parents present in the corridor observed, their whispers increasing. One commented on her audacity, another scoffed that she demanded recordings as though she possessed ownership. Ridicule moved through the collective, piercing and merciless. Dr. Warwick cleared her throat, her gaze shifting nervously, speaking with artificial concern, suggesting they avoid escalation. Elise rose, her linen blouse catching illumination, her canvas bag positioned beside her. She observed Meredith, then Dr. Warwick, then the parents displaying smirks in the entrance. Her voice maintained steadiness with each word deliberate. She stated they'd provided her son with the most agonizing education of his existence, expressing gratitude yet promising to ensure he received superior instruction through her methods. The space became silent, Meredith's smirk disappearing, the parents' ridicule ceasing abruptly. Elise rotated, her footwear silent against the hardwood, departing with elevated posture. Behind her, whispers resumed, yet they transformed, now uncertain and uneasy. That afternoon, the institution maintained its typical rhythm, students proceeding to athletic practice, educators grading within glass-enclosed workspaces, parents establishing connections over espresso in the former student area. Then a subdued vibration penetrated the atmosphere, intensifying, a pulse that trembled the windows. Students released their materials, educators paused mid-statement, and parents emerged from the area with widened eyes. A sophisticated black helicopter descended onto the athletic grounds, its rotating mechanism slicing atmosphere, generating a disturbance of particles and vegetation. The silver text on its exterior gleamed beneath sunlight. Harper Global ENI, Tiatives. The designation struck with impact. Children gestured while whispering the Harper name. An educator named Mr. Daniels froze with his beverage container trembling, muttering about Harper Global, the Telecommunications Corporation, the Catastrophe Assistance Organization. The entrance opened, and Graham Harper emerged. Tall, with broad shoulders, wearing a gray shirt untucked with sleeves folded to his forearms. He moved with the subdued authority of someone requiring no vocal emphasis. His dark hair showed silver flecks, his blue eyes sharp as metal, scanning the assembly with precision refined through executive chambers and emergency situations. Behind him followed a young woman in professional attire, his assistant Clara, carrying documentation marked urgent. The assembly separated as students observed in amazement and parents whispered. One mother gasped while gripping her luxury handbag, identifying him as the billionaire who reconstructed Haiti's communications infrastructure following the earthquake. Another parent, a technology executive named Victor Crane, lost color, recognizing him as among their largest financial contributors. Graham ignored the assembly, proceeding directly to the oak tree where Elise remained with Theo, her hands gently cleaning his with a cloth. She glanced upward with her chocolate eyes tranquil and her smile subtle yet warm. Graham knelt with his hand brushing Theo's hair, speaking softly to inquire about his well-being. Theo nodded with his eyes still reddened yet steady. Graham's attention shifted to Elise as a silent inquiry passed between them. She nodded once with her hand resting on his arm. Then he rose, rotating to confront the assembly. Dr. Warwick, Meredith, Carter, the instructors, the parents, the boys who'd ridiculed in the dining facility. His voice remained subdued, excessively subdued, the type of quiet that caused skin to prickle. He stated he'd been informed someone instructed his spouse she didn't belong at this location, his eyes securing Meredith's attention as she retreated with her footwear unsteady, suggesting their son shouldn't occupy space beside their children. The assembly remained silent as the helicopter's mechanism slowed to a gentle vibration. Dr. Warwick advanced with clasped hands and trembling voice, claiming this represented a significant misunderstanding. Graham elevated a hand, interrupting her statement, declaring this wasn't misunderstanding but moral collapse. He stated they'd instructed their children that status received measurement through automobile brands and premium financial instruments. His attention swept the assembly, securing educators, parents, and students, declaring they'd constructed an institution where cruelty functioned as currency, while his son bore the expense. Carter Lang, positioned with his companions, glanced downward as his footwear scraped the vegetation. The remaining boys shifted as their confidence vanished. Elise rose with her linen blouse catching wind and her bag at her feet. She accessed the documentation Clara had provided, her voice rising clear and unshakable, traveling throughout the grounds. She identified herself as Elise Harper, her gaze meeting every face in the assembly, declaring herself co-founder of the Silent Schools Project, a restricted fund contributing over $18 million to this institution throughout the previous 6 years. Shocked reactions moved through the assembly as educators exchanged stunned expressions and parents gripped their devices. Meredith's face lost all color with her crimson lipstick stark against her paleness. Dr. Warwick's hands trembled as her document holder slipped. Elise continued with steady voice, explaining they selected anonymity to observe the institution's treatment of individuals, lacking status displays, stating she now possessed her response. She paused, allowing her statement's weight to settle, declaring they ridiculed her son regarding his clothing, his midday meal, and his mother. She stated they permitted his humiliation, and when she requested justice, they responded with ridicule. Her gaze secured Meredith, then Dr. Warwick, then the boys, declaring they failed him and every child present. Graham positioned himself beside her with his hand brushing hers, declaring with immediate effect that Harper Global Initiatives would withdraw all financial support from Astor Heights Academy. Every dollar, every allocation, every scholarship eliminated. The assembly erupted in murmurs as parents lost color and educators whispered. He added they would also withdraw Theo, stating he deserved superior treatment. Elise nodded with softer yet equally firm voice, announcing they'd construct a new institution where every child received respect regardless of their parents' attire, transportation, or income. She stated they welcomed applications, though suspected certain individuals wouldn't satisfy their standards. The consequences materialized rapidly. Astor Heights' reputation disintegrated overnight. The Greenwich Times published a prominent article titled, "Billionaire Contributors Withdraw Financial Support Following Bullying Controversy at Exclusive Institution." Social media exploded with a hashtag referencing Astor shame trending internationally as parents and former students distributed their personal accounts of exclusion and cruelty. Wealthy households began removing their children, fearing association with the scandal. Within 1 week, registration decreased 20%, while the governing body initiated an internal examination, suspending Dr. Warwick and Ms. Kendall pending evaluation. Meredith Lang's social schedule emptied as her charitable celebrations received cancellations and her reputation became damaged. Carter and his companions confronted expulsion proceedings, their parents' influence proving inadequate against public fury. The boys who deposited food on Theo received identification in the surveillance recordings, which leaked digitally, accumulating millions of views. Carter's sneering expression became an internet meme with captions labeling him privileged bully. Parents who'd ridiculed Elise, Preston Tate, and Victor Crane observed their commercial ventures experiencing negative impact as their financial valuations decreased while investors distanced themselves from the controversy. Astor Heights' financial reserves, previously a $200 million fortress, hemorrhaged resources as its prestige diminished to a cautionary narrative. The institution's social media presence, previously showcasing gleaming facilities, received floods of remarks expressing shame and advocating justice for Theo. The leaked dining facility recording transcended viral status, igniting a firestorm consuming Astor Heights' privileged community. A whistleblower, a young technology staff member disgusted by the institution's passivity, transmitted the recording to a major news organization, which broadcast it alongside interviews with former students exposing years of unchecked bullying. The broadcast identified Meredith Lang, Preston Tate, and Miss Kendall by name, their faces displayed across national news as architects of destructive culture. Meredith's venture capital organization removed her from its governing body, erasing her socialite status. Preston's property empire lost $30 million in agreements, his expensive timepiece becoming a hollow symbol. Ms. Kendall received termination, and her teaching credentials revoked following parents filing a collective legal action against the institution, citing negligence. The lawsuit, supported by Harper Global's legal team, compelled Astor Heights to provide $5 million in compensation to affected households, devastating its financial reserves. Social media targeted the bullies as Carter's internet meme received new captions labeling him an elite failure, diminishing his university prospects. The world celebrated as the Harper's justice, subdued, precise, and devastating, left their tormentors struggling amid the ruins of their own creation. Elise observed the news from her garden with her bag on the seating, her heart steady with certainty that truth had succeeded. Elise and Graham avoided gloating and proceeded forward. Within several months, they initiated construction on the Harper Academy, a contemporary campus in nearby Stamford featuring open instructional spaces, complimentary tuition for half its students, and a conduct code prioritizing compassion over social standing. Elise supervised every element from the solar energy panels to the inclusive midday meal program, her notepad filled with concepts for community outreach. Graham financed the undertaking, yet the vision belonged to Elise, an institution where no child would experience ridicule for a canvas bag or home-prepared lunch. The New York Times characterized it as a revolutionary educational approach, and applications flooded in from households both wealthy and modest, attracted to its fairness promise. Theo flourished. During Harper Academy's inauguration, he delivered a reserved address about stellar formations with steady voice and bright chocolate eyes. Classmates celebrated not through fear or status, but because Theo belonged among them, a child passionate about stars who'd confronted cruelty and emerged strengthened. He became a subdued leader, not for his surname, but for his character. Children throughout Stamford knew his account not as the billionaire's son, but as the boy who maintained dignity when others attempted destruction. Elise and Graham observed from peripheral positions, her linen blouse unchanged and his gray sleeves still folded. They required no spotlight as their work communicated louder. At their residence, their colonial-style home vibrated with vitality. Theo's rockets on the veranda, Elise's garden flourishing, Graham preparing food in the rear yard. They'd exposed Astor Heights not through anger, but through action, constructing something superior in its place. The world recognized Elise for her true identity, not a charity recipient, not hired help, but a force of grace and determination, her humility representing strength no fortune could replicate. One evening, as Elise prepared Theo for rest, he glanced upward with subdued voice, inquiring whether she felt anger toward those individuals. She smoothed his hair with a gentle smile, responding negatively, stating they instructed them regarding who they preferred not to become, declaring that sufficient. Theo nodded while gripping his model rocket before drifting to slumber. Outside, the stars blazed intensely, a map of possibilities Elise had already charted. The Harper Academy opened its entrance and the world acknowledged it, not for its wealth, but for its compassion. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for